I know I said I wasn't going to make a video again for ages, but this is an exciting one and I wanted to take you along on the journey with me, as I do with sort of all my Instagram content is just kind of my little life journey. So, actually doesn't need a drum roll, you've probably seen in the title of the video. Me and Pete put an offer in on our first home, to buy our first home last week, and it was accepted. It's a wild time to be buying, so I thought I would make a little video. This is going to be like a parts series, I think, so I'm going to do a little kind of everything I've learned up until like putting an offer in onto a flat, or a home or a house, whatever you're buying, video. So yeah, I want to like talk about everything I've learned so far, because I feel like in the past we've probably been looking for about 2 months, looking at properties for about 2 months. Everything I've learned within that time. So when we first started looking, we were actually looking in 2 different areas, and we were looking between houses and flats. So I'd say the very top end of our budget was probably about 450, but we really didn't want to go that high, because even though the stamp duty is super minimal, we really wanted to take advantage of being first-time buyers and try and stick with no stamp duty. And if you live in London, you don't pay any stamp duty on a property up to the value of 425. I'm not 100% sure what I'm not sure 100% sure what it is outside of London. I want to say it's like quite significantly less, but obviously within London you can't really buy that many properties for under 425, so you're really hunting anyway if you want to buy a property at that price point. Anyway, so we were looking in where we currently live, which is Putney in Zone 2 in London. We were looking between Putney and then between an area just outside of southwest London, which is Zone I think 4/5, because we could afford 2 very different things in these 2 areas. So obviously in Putney, we adore living here, like we love it so much. It's been our home for the past 2 years. Round the corner in like Chelsea Fulham has been Pete's home for like the majority, actually all of his life, I think. So we love this area, we know this area really well. It would have been absolutely incredible to continue living around here. However, we found once we started looking that at our price point, that like 425, 450 mark, you just don't get a lot in this area. You don't get what we were looking for. You don't get the spec we were looking for. You get very short leases, you get super high service charge. It just wasn't what we were looking for. So we saw quite a few properties in the area. We saw 2, in fact, even in the building that we live in currently. One of the ones in the building we live in currently was over £6,000 service charge. We do have 2 lifts in this building. It does have a 2 porters. Were they called porters? Is that the right word? Like guys that look after the building. So you're getting what you're paying for, I guess. But oh my god, it was like on top of the mortgage, that being like the top end of our mortgage, we just couldn't do that £6,000 on top. And that property I think went live 2 months ago. Where was our first property we saw, and is still up for sale. So I think that service charge would obviously, like in terms of like reselling it, would make it so hard to resell. So that was something we started to consider when we were looking round here. I also learned a lot about leases in that time. So when you buy a flat, it usually comes as a leasehold, and the leasehold means that you actually only own that property for a certain amount of years before you have to consider extending the lease. A lot of the properties we found, again in our area within our budget, were very low leases. Like I'm talking like well under 100 years. Some were like early 90s, some were like mid 80s. And once you get under 80 years on a lease, if you want to extend the lease, you have to pay something called marriage value back to the person that owns the freehold on your building. So you extend the lease, and then you have to pay to the person that owns the building half of the value that you're gaining on your property from extending that lease. So that just put me well off the idea of leasehold, and when we were seeing stuff around here, like the standard was just like not good. Like we saw another flat which was on this amazing road. Like I've got this thing that you buy the cheapest house on the most expensive street because you can gain value with the property and with the street. And this was very much the cheapest house on the most, like, on a street of mansions. But we got there and there was like dehumidifiers all along one of the walls, and you could like visibly see where they'd cleaned off like black mold spots. In my first flat I lived in London, we had pretty bad like black mold in my bedroom, and I recognized that, like, because I used to clean it every day. I recognized that when I see it, like, straight away. And like I was saying it to Peter, and like the estate agent like basically was like, oh yeah, like they're slimy buggers, aren't they? It was basically like, yeah, all the flats in this area, like you have to kind of keep the window a little bit ajar and you have to use these dehumidifiers. And I was like, no, like I'm not on like that. I think that one was on for 475 as well. Like it wasn't a cheap property. It was covered, it was a nice, like, actually in terms of the space it was quite nice. It was like a bit like it needed work, like the kitchen needed some love, but like we could have done that in the future, but it wasn't worth that price at all. That one's not still up, so obviously somebody's bought it, but I would imagine someone's bought that as a buy-to-let, not like as a first-time buyer, because you could just like obviously let it out. Well, I mean, I personally wouldn't, but you know what landlords are like, that will just get let out in that condition, I'm sure, and it will be left for the tenants to deal with. So yeah, wasn't for us. So we really kind of then started to move our search over to zone 4, zone 5 area, where we were looking at houses and flats. So we can afford, in our price point, we could afford a 2-bedroom flat in this area, especially with the market being as it is. There's kind of like room to negotiate. People aren't putting their prices up as much as they were in maybe like 2020, 2021, when there was the boom. Obviously we're in a bit of a housing like dip at the moment. So we started to look in the zone 4, zone 5 area that we're looking into, just outside of southwest London, and we saw, I think, about 5-6 properties in this area, both houses and flats. And yeah, last week we settled on a flat that we're going to buy. So we've decided we want to go the lower end of our budget, and have something that we can live in for the next 4 or 5 years, and it can be I like our starter home, I guess. We decided, like, we were seeing the houses, and at that budget we can get like a 2-bedroom house, and we thought, let's just buy something smaller and cheaper now, save up the extra cash, obviously get the money from that we're not putting into rent anymore, we're putting into our own property, and use that to get up to like the 600 kind of mark in the future. And then you can get like a semi-detached 3 to 4 bed in the area we're living in. You can get so much more by just, I say it's just 100 grand, but like having that extra 100 grand that we could play with in maybe 4 or 5 years time will mean that we can buy something that is like wildest dreams kind of home to me, like what I would imagine like raising a family in. And I'm 31, so I like in the next 4 or 5 years, that's where I see our life going. So yeah, that's our little like roundup story of what I learnt, not what I learnt, what we did to get to this point. So we put an offer in on Monday. We went negotiating back and forth, which I actually really enjoyed, and we ended up going £1,000 over what we offered, and or maybe more, anyway, a little bit over what we offered, but we got all the white goods included and a few other bits within the house that we liked the look of. So for me, we got it for a really great price. Obviously the mortgage rates are criminal, like actually criminal right now, so we are looking at like 5.5 to 6% mortgages at the moment, which is insane. Hopefully by the time you're watching, or if you're buying right now, like, how's it going? But so this is, fingers crossed, touch wood, the most expensive we will, like the most money we will ever pay for this flat. I looked at like what we would be paying mortgage wise on this flat if they go back down to, I don't think they'll probably ever go back down to the sort of 1s and 2s they were on pre-COVID, or was it post-COVID, I don't know, whenever that kind of boom was. I don't think they'll ever go back to that, but we would literally be paying like £800 less a month. So if they do go back anywhere near to that, we're gonna like really, like we've made it so we can easily afford what we're paying now, but like when they go down, and we're not gonna fix for 2 years, when they go down, then we will be like really, really comfortable, which is like a really nice feeling. So yeah, that's, sorry, Pete's making a cup of tea and playing with the cat, and sorry for, and it's raining outside, sorry for loads of noises you can hear. I'm also like, it's like 7 AM and I'm on a Saturday and I'm getting ready to go to a TikTok event, which is fun. But yeah, so let's actually get into everything I've learned in this sort of 2 months of starting to do this. I would say, like, I didn't go in completely blind. My younger sister bought her house a few years ago, so gave me a lot of kind of good info. A couple of my friends have bought properties recently, so I had a lot of like people I could talk to about it, which was really great. I didn't go in completely blind, but there was still like a lot I learned on the way. I would say the biggest thing that I learned when I started to look was all about leasehold. That, and like knowing we didn't want a leasehold property, that was like a big thing that I learned. So leasehold basically means that you own the flat or the space that you are living in, but you don't own the land. So you have to pay rent or service charge or ground rent or something to the actual owner of the freehold. And if a lease is below 100 years, which a lot of the properties around here are, it makes it like difficult to sell them, and means that as soon as you're buying that property, you have to look at extending the lease in the future. Obviously, even if your lease is 100 years, you're never going to outlive your lease, but you're still you're gonna have trouble selling it. If you could like intend to live it for the rest of your life and never want to hand it down to anyone, it's whatever. Sorry, I'm talking too much. But you don't really want to look at like a low lease. Is she playing? Then I was wondering what that noise was. It's you. Then you also have service charge included in flats, and we didn't really look at too many like new build actually we didn't look at any new build properties because I don't like new builds. I think they're icky. I mean, not that ours is actually that old, but I don't like the brand new spanking new builds. I think they've got like too many issues. I think they're wildly overpriced, and the service charge is insane. The woman who we bought the flat we're buying from, she lived in a new build previously and said her new build service charge was 7 grand. This is not a new build building. This is a very old building. I think it's from the 1920s, but not very old, it's 1920s building. But even here, because of the lifts and all the different features, the beautiful gardens outside, the service charge 6 grand, which is so much to consider when you're budgeting and your affordability for your mortgage. So if you are looking to buy a flat, make sure you are budgeting in service charge and ground rent for the properties as well, especially if you're looking to buy in like zone 2 or zone 1, like the inner areas of London. Make sure you are budgeting for service charge as well as your mortgage when you're doing all your numbers. And that's another thing I would recommend. I would highly recommend doing your numbers so you can see what you can truly afford starting to look, so you don't get disappointed. Just sort of looking into what you can truly afford. I literally feel like every house we were seeing, I wrote up like a scenario of what our outgoings would look like if we were to buy this property, like from looking at like council tax to water to energy bills, like looking up who their energy supplier was and what we would be quoted for that, like taking everything, like insurance on the place, like taking everything into consideration every time we looked at a property, just so that we would go in with being like, right, what can we actually afford for this? Like, what's it worth and what can we actually afford? Like, we don't want to, we're in a cost of living crisis right now. Like, we're crazy to be buying a house right now. Like, I don't want to overstretch ourselves if we don't need to. So yeah, I would do that for every property. I think it's just getting your sort of budgeting in line, and also looking at like what properties are worth in the area, were the last sales for, how long ago did they buy their house, what was the price when they bought it, what is it like. You can't obviously trust Zoopla evaluations really, because they don't know what the homes inside look like and that sort of thing, but it's good to just get kind of a ballpark from them, so you've got a bit of an idea of what you're playing with really. I made a list. Let me have a look at what else was on my list. So in terms of kind of getting your finances in a row, I think it's really good to go and speak to a mortgage advisor before you even start looking. Again, just to really like understand what you can afford and avoid disappointment. So we spoke to a mortgage advisor, I'd say a few months. Actually, like, yeah, about 4 or 5 months before we started looking, but our financial situation wasn't going to be changing, so that we knew of, and it didn't. So it was still relevant when we went to look at our property. And I saw so many people, I've been watching so many YouTube videos about buying your first home. I saw loads of people paying to get their mortgage in principle. Don't do that. I've got 2 websites I'm going to link down below. One's Better Mortgage, I think it's called better.co.uk. It's like a mortgage advice place. And then one is just like you can get linked up with a mortgage advisor. So then we did both of those, and they quoted us like a similar amount. So we had we had mortgage in principles and illustrations by the time we came to buy a property. Like our illustrations were actually above what we were purchasing. So just make sure you kind of get your illustration at your highest like your highest offer you would go, just so you've got it there if you because when you put an offer in, they want to see that. So I would definitely recommend speaking to a mortgage advisor, getting some advice on what you can afford. And they obviously take like everything into consideration: your credit rating, your affordability, your pay, like how much you get paid, like everything. They take everything into consideration. So don't pay for that. There's loads of free options for doing it, and you're not getting the mortgage right now, so what are you paying for? They're literally just drawing you up some things you could find yourself online, should you so wish, but it's always good to do it for a professional. I personally think you can obviously get it all the information about mortgages online as well, but I think in terms of mortgage in principle, it's really good to do it for a professional. And then they will obviously as well give you your options about buying schemes. This is definitely for you to do your research into as well. We didn't feel like we needed to use any sort of the buying schemes. Obviously there was Help to Buy that now no longer exists, but there are other options available, like what's it called, shared ownership, and there is the first time buyers scheme, which is applicable only to London, and it's basically when you rent a portion of your property and buy a portion. I think it's very similar to Help to Buy, but they're only doing it in two developments in London currently, but I can leave that link down below anyway. It's not something that we were considering. I don't want to buy a new build. I don't really want to buy on a buying scheme if we can avoid it, which we did. And shared, yeah, to me, obviously none of this is financial advice, but to me, shared ownership is like I totally understand it if you're a single person, and there is no way you would be able to buy without a buying scheme. But the idea of like owning some of your property, renting some of your property, but then having to pay the full service charge and like ground rent and all of that, like it just feels a little scammy. But what do I know? I don't know enough about it really to make too many accusations. It wasn't for us. But if you are obviously trying to buy and you don't have like enough deposit saved for, or you don't have the salary to buy a loan, then there are obviously these buying schemes you can look at that are available. Well, I think the first time home scheme is just London, but yeah. And also if you're a key worker, you get like additional money on your mortgage as well. So there's key worker mortgages where you can get up to, I think 5.5% you can borrow up to. Buying schemes out there, we didn't personally use any of them, so I won't go into them too much detail, but they're options. And then kind of jumping around with this whole finance thing, but getting your finances in a row is very important, I've realised. So our mortgage advisor has just taken 3 months three months bank statements from both of us. But my banking is sort of, I kind of like live a little bit of a zero-based, like not like purposefully too much, but a bit of like a zero-based budget in terms of like my money comes in and I put it into like 1,000 different pots of different things, knowing this amount of money goes to this amount of money goes to savings, this amount of money goes to holiday, this amount of money goes to food, and this amount of money goes to rent. And yeah, so I sort of use my money in a bit of a strange way, and I'm quite interested to see if that affects anything in terms of how, when they're doing our mortgage, we've got a lot of extra questions and stuff, but I can let you know in the second part of this video. But I would also, like, I would say I kind of wish I just hadn't, like, for the past 3 months, like since we knew we were going to buy, I just hadn't done that and just kind of kept everything in one place and just kept it simple for myself and for the whoever we're going to end up going with our mortgage. I kind of wish I'd done that, but yeah, it is what it is. It's done now, so we'll just have to work with it. But we'll see. I can let you know in the next, I'm going to do this video in parts once I learn like more about this and we go more on the journey, then I will let you know. This video is already 21 minutes long, so I was gonna do like the bit like what happens after you place an offer in this video, but I think I'm gonna do another chit-chatty video where I talk about that because I don't think I can fit it into this one as well. And yeah, so I definitely get all the ducks in a row mortgage wise, sorry, bank statements wise, just so you don't look crazy. Like, you don't look like a crazy person. I don't know, am I gonna look like a crazy person? I think a lot of people do budget in this way nowadays, but I don't know, I'm interested to see if that affects anything. And then I think my last thing would be like, where do people look for properties? So I was watching videos and I saw people like cold email estate agents and say like, do you have anything that fits my spec? But we didn't do that at all. We like did all the searching ourselves. We set up notifications on Rightmove for the areas. I actually looked at all the flats on Rightmove. I don't think I actually even looked at anything on Zoopla, but yeah, for the areas we wanted, I set up notifications on Rightmove, but I also was like on there every day having a look, just seeing what was new, seeing what was out there, and again, like, yeah, like really looking like in between all those budgets, all the areas we were looking, and I kind of wanted to keep it broad at first, and then we obviously kind of narrowed it down when we like realized we didn't want to stay in Putney just because of what we could get was silly, and then we yeah, just kind of looked on there, and then I would just email the estate agents directly and be like, I want to see this property. So we probably spent the past few months like every other or maybe sometimes every weekend in the new area we're going to live in, viewing properties, and my sister lives there, so like going out for lunch with her and like getting used to like seeing if we actually enjoy the area, which we do, so that's good. Oh, it's not the cat. Which we do, which is good, but obviously she lives there, so I think like living near my sister's just going to be really lovely anyway, but the area is good too. And also Time Out, so one of the pubs in the area is like the best pub in London, so I feel like it's got next place to be gentrified written all over it, which I obviously come from an area of London that was since I've lived there has been very gentrified. I come from Tooting, and when I grew up in Tooting, it wasn't the Tooting it is today, and my parents bought, obviously it was a very different time, but bought their house for a lot less than my mum will probably be able to sell it for. So yeah, it's but I don't, that's not why we're buying this property, but I do think it's kind of interesting to look at areas that are up and coming rather than areas that are already up in terms of this as well, because you are going to get more for your money. So I'm going to finish the video here because it's going to be 25 minutes long, and I was thinking the next one I would do, I'll talk about the process of us getting our offer accepted and what's happened now really. So this is sort of the first step of what we did pre-buying a property, and in that video as well I'll talk about what I kind of wish we had already lined up. But honestly I think we're really organised with this as people, with this and as people, so we filled up the whole SD card, but yeah, we are quite organised people and everything seems to be at the moment going pretty smooth, but obviously we're the first week into offering, so God knows. The next video I'm going to make, I will try and make it tomorrow actually. I'm going to do one about what the process has been like so far after offering and what we've learned on that. But yeah, hope you enjoyed guys. Hit subscribe if you did, stay updated for this whole series that's going to be on the channel. I'm going to do like a whole first time buyer thing, so yeah, I'll catch you in that one. Bye guys.